Today's AI and cybersecurity briefing starts with one urgent story. SiYuan's MCP endpoint has a critical authorization flaw, CVE 2026-66012, rated CVSS 10 by NVD. We will also cover an NLTK eval injection risk for machine learning pipelines, a critical H2O-GPT OpenAI-compatible files API path traversal issue, and an Azure AI Search SSRF privilege escalation advisory. The main takeaway is simple. AI tooling is now part of the production control plane, so file APIs, plugins, notebooks, search services, tokens, and identities need the same hardening you would apply to your core infrastructure. First, the SiYuan issue. NVD describes CVE 2026-66012 as affecting SiYuan before version 3.7.2. The vulnerable component is the post/MCP kernel endpoint. According to the NVD record and the GitHub advisory, the endpoint was gated by a general authentication check, but lacked stronger admin role enforcement and read-only restrictions for the exposed MCP tools. In affected publish server configurations, a request could be proxied with a reader role and still reach MCP functionality. The important defensive point is that MCP tools are not just chat helpers. They can bridge into workspace operations, files, configuration, plugins, and local execution surfaces. The confirmed impact in the advisory is severe. Vulnerable configurations can expose file actions across the workspace, including list, read, write, delete, rename, and copy operations. The advisory also describes access to configuration values such as access codes, API tokens, and cookie-related secrets, plus arbitrary rights inside the workspace. Because SiYuan supports plugins, workspace rights can become much more important than simple data corruption. Treat any plausible exposure as a security incident, not just a patch management ticket. What should defenders do right now? Upgrade SiYuan to version 3.7.2 or later, or apply the project fix referenced by the advisory. If publish features are not required, disable anonymous publish access. Put SiYuan behind authentication and network allow lists, especially if it is reachable from the internet. Review logs around MCP access and file operations. If exposure is plausible, rotate SiYuan access codes, API tokens, cookies, and secrets stored near the workspace. Also inspect plugin directories and recently modified workspace files, because in this model files and extensions are privileged surfaces. Second, NLTK CVE 2025-71408 affects NLTK before version 3.9.3 and is rated high by NVD. NLTK is a long-running and widely used natural language processing toolkit, so even a local command line issue can matter when the library appears in notebooks, automation, CI jobs, data preparation scripts, and AI experimentation environments. NVD describes an eval injection flaw in the NLTK.collocations module when it is invoked directly with attacker-controlled command line arguments. This is not the same risk profile as a remote unauthenticated internet service, but it is still relevant anywhere untrusted values flow into local tooling wrappers. The defensive fix for NLTK is straightforward. Upgrade to NLTK 3.9.3 or later. Then review job runners, scheduled notebooks, shell wrappers, CI tasks, and data science scripts that call NLTK command modules directly. The broader lesson is that AI and machine learning pipelines often glue together libraries, notebooks, shell commands, datasets, and helper tools. A vulnerability may start as local code execution, but in an automated environment that local context may include cloud credentials, model artifacts, dataset access, or deployment tokens. Third, H2O-GPT. CVE 2026-65700 is listed by NVD as critical with CVSS 9.8 and affects H2O-GPT through version 0.2.1. The issue is path traversal in an OpenAI-compatible files API. At the advisory level, an unauthenticated remote attacker may be able to read, write, or delete files accessible to the server process by abusing how user directories are derived. If the server process has broad file system permissions, this can become a serious confidentiality and integrity problem. If attacker-controlled writes can reach startup hooks or application-loaded files, the advisory describes a path toward code execution under the application context. For H2O GPT and similar self-hosted AI applications, patch or apply the vendor guidance, disable unneeded file endpoints, require authentication, and restrict network exposure. Run the service with least privilege file system permissions. Avoid mounting sensitive host directories into containers. Review upload, delete, and file content access logs. If the server was internet exposed, consider rebuilding from known good images and rotating tokens that may have been readable by the application account. OpenAI compatible does not automatically mean safe by design, it means the interface is familiar, and familiar interfaces still need authorization, path validation, and isolation. Fourth, Azure AI Search CVE-2026-56167 is rated high by NVD, with CVSS 8.5. Microsoft's advisory describes server-side request forgery in Azure AI Search that can allow an authorized attacker to elevate privileges over a network. The word authorized matters. This is not presented as unauthenticated public takeover in the NVD summary. But authorized network attackers, compromised low-privilege identities, and overly broad managed identities are common cloud risk paths. In cloud AI stacks, search services often connect to data sources, private endpoints, enrichment pipelines, and identity permissions, so SSRF can have impact beyond a single HTTP request. Azure defenders should review Microsoft guidance for the affected service and update status. Validate managed identity scopes and remove unnecessary permissions. Prefer private networking and restricted inbound access. Limit outbound access where possible, turn on diagnostics, and review unusual requests or identity activity around the service. The goal is not panic, the goal is to make sure a lower privileged foothold cannot become a cloud privilege escalation path. Across all four stories, the shared pattern is authorization at integration boundaries. MCP endpoints, NLP command wrappers, OpenAI-style files APIs, and cloud search services all sit where data, code, files, identity, and automation meet. Builders should inventory these systems as production control plane assets. Businesses should prioritize patching based on exposure and privilege, not just product category. Everyday users and small teams should focus on updates, removing public exposure, strong authentication, and secret rotation after possible compromise. Here is the practical checklist. First, identify whether you run SiYuan before 3.7.2, NLTK before 3.9.3, H2O GPT through 0.2.1, or affected Azure AI Search configurations. Second, patch or apply the official mitigation. Third, reduce public access and require authentication. Fourth, isolate file systems and service accounts. Fifth, rotate secrets when sensitive files or configuration may have been exposed. Sixth, preserve logs before rebuilding or cleaning systems. These steps are defensive, verifiable, and useful even when exploit details are intentionally left out. That is today's Daily Touch at Global Briefing. Sources are linked in the description, including NVD, GitHub advisory material, Microsoft MSRC, and VulnCheck references where available. Stay patched, keep AI tools behind strong boundaries, and treat every new integration as a security boundary until proven otherwise.